You may not think you have enough, but bring what you have to Jesus. Maybe God's called you to do something that you don't think you have the capacity to do. Maybe He's called you to feed that 5,000 men, not including women and children. Maybe He's called you to do something that seems bigger than your current capacity. God wouldn't call you to do it if He wouldn't make a way for it to happen. Hearing the calling of God and it being more than you can emotionally handle, more than you can financially handle, more than you can mentally handle, it can cause anxiety and worry. Submit that anxiety, submit that worry to Christ. Let Him provide and stop trying to play that part in your own life. My name's Elias. I make videos to help people get to know Jesus. Today, we're talking about provision and how to let Jesus be the provider in your life. All right, today we're going to read the story of Jesus feeding the 5,000 in Matthew 14. I kind of broke this story down into 4 little parts. It's not how it's broken down necessarily, it's just how I chose to break it down and make it digestible for today. Part 1, well, not part 1, I guess step 1. I don't know. The first part is anxiety, second part is submission, third part is thanks, and the fourth part is provision. So let's talk about anxiety. In my last video, I said anxiety is a choice. I didn't mean regular anxiety, not like there's something wrong with your brain or like there's a chemical imbalance, not that kind of anxiety. Everyday anxiety and worry is a choice. You're going to be given opportunities day after day, time after time, to either be anxious or to not worry. And every time we find ourselves in anxiety, I'm confident saying that we've chosen it, right? Every time I find myself worrying or getting into my head, generally I've chosen that route because I can choose to pray, submit it to God, and understand that it's taken care of, that I don't have to worry, right? My worry doesn't change my situation. Praying doesn't always immediately change my situation either. But why choose the route or the path that brings me more trouble? Yeah, with all that being said, let's open up to Matthew 14, reading verse 13 to 21. Our quick little background of this text before we get into it. In the verses beforehand in Matthew 14, John the Baptist, Jesus' cousin, had just been killed, like beheaded by the king, King Herod. And Jesus was Jesus was mourning. He was distraught. So he went away to go and pray, find some solitude, just to mourn his bro, basically, you know. I found it interesting that even during his mourning, he was still serving. You know, he was still willing to give folks the gospel. He was still willing to live and work in his ministry, you know. He still had compassion while he himself was in pain. All right, so verse 13 says, as soon as Jesus heard the news, he left in the boat to a remote place, the news that his cousin had died. He left in the boat to a remote place to be alone. But the crowds heard where he was headed and followed on foot from many towns. Jesus saw the huge crowd as he stepped from the boat, and he had compassion on them and healed their sick. Right, like I said before, Christ had just learned that his cousin had died. His cousin was killed, actually, by the king. But he saw other people who were also hurting, and he chose to have compassion on them, and he healed their sick. I think this shows the human side of Jesus, that he hurt with us when we hurt. He mourns with us when we mourn, right? He understands our emotions. He understands how we feel. So I want to use this little 2 verses as some encouragement, actually, you know, like, don't hold out with God about how you really feel. Don't have to sugarcoat it or make it sound all churchy. You can be straight up with God. Lord, I feel sick in my spirit. Lord, I feel X, Y, and Z ways, right? God understands our human feelings. He's felt those same feelings himself. Verse 15 says, that evening the disciples came to him and said, this is a remote place and it's already getting late. Send the crowds away so they can go to the villages and buy food for themselves. But Jesus said, that isn't necessary. You feed them. The disciples are in a remote place with 5,000 people. Well, 5,000 men. So around 15 to 20,000 people. That's not a small town, is it? I don't know. It's a lot of folks, though. It's like a football stadium, basically. Maybe a little bit smaller. But what I'm saying is, they're in a remote place. There's no food nearby. And Jesus talking about you feed them. What do you mean we feed them? Or they feed them? You know? And the reason I chose to title this section anxiety, I'm not saying the disciples had anxiety, but at least reflecting into our own lives, When God tells us to do something, sometimes it can induce that anxiety, not induce, sometimes it can give us an opportunity or a window to choose anxiety. When I got baptized 2 years ago, I felt the Lord tell me to do three things. One of which was to start this channel. I was like, Lord, I'm not gonna lie, I don't know that much of the Bible. I'm not the biggest talker. I stutter a lot. All these excuses, right? But I finally started the channel and now I'm here and it's a little smaller channel relatively. I know my friends are gonna yell at me for saying I'm still small, but it's 300 folks. It is what it is. I'm relatively still small and I'm worrying about like, Lord, I'm spending all this money, spending all this time. I could have a job by now. Like, what do you mean what do you mean I should start this channel? What do you mean I should do this thing that looks like it's so impossible? At least right now it looks impossible. But Lord, what do you mean we feed them? That's not that's not an easy task to do. But Christ never said things would be easy, but he also never said they'd be impossible. Sometimes we may not have much, may not have much money, you may not have much knowledge, you may not have many resources. But if God's called you out, he will equip you as you go, right? He will equip you to do what he's called you to do. All we need to do is have faith and submit. Because submission is not based on what you have, it's based on your heart. All right, now we're going to go to Mark 12, verses 41 to 43. In the NLT version, this section is titled, A Poor Woman Gives All She Has. Verse 41 reads, Jesus sat down near the collection box in the temple and watched as the crowds dropped in their money. Many rich people put in large amounts. Then a poor widow came and dropped in 2 small coins. Not only is she a widow, but she's a poor widow. That's like she's double unblessed, you know what I mean? Like in that day, I don't know how much women worked or had their own business or whatever it was, but I know for a fact as a woman, you were definitely at a societal disadvantage. So the fact that she was both poor and had no husband, which means she like really, really had no bread, but she still came to the temple in faith and dropped in her 2 small coins. She still made that sacrifice when she didn't have a lot. She still decided to give all she had, even though it was a little bit, that shows the level of her faith. Verse 43 says, Jesus called his disciples and said to them, I tell you the truth, this poor woman has given more than all the others who are making contributions. For they gave a tiny part of their surplus, but she, poor as she is, has given everything she had to live on. Imagine going to church and seeing like a homeless person give a little 25 cents. I think it shows that they understand submission and giving to God more than a lot of people. Like me personally, when I got a tithe, I don't got that much bread. But when I got a tithe that 10%, I like give an offering in church, it hurts every single time, right? Because to submit and do what I'm being told to do by God requires faith. I don't fully understand tithing. I don't fully understand giving or the offering. Even when I was a little kid, I thought like God came into the church at night and took the money to heaven and paid his heavenly bills or whatever it was. I don't know. But I've never had a complete grasp on it. But I know for a fact one thing that tithing does for me is it disconnects me from my money. It disconnects me from my resources and the tools that I have, right? It forces me to put my faith in God, even though I still have 90% of my money. It forced me to put my faith in God and say, I'm going to do this thing that I don't fully understand because you told me to. Like, I don't need all this proof and all this proof. I don't need all the proof and explanations to do what you told me to do, Lord, right? All I'm going to do is have faith and put in what I have, no matter how minuscule I might think it is, because God's not looking for our money. He doesn't have heavenly bills, right? He can make money out of thin air if he wanted to. It's not about the money, right? It's about our heart posture. It's about, will you give when I prompt you to give? Will you give when I tell you to give, right? Will you do what I've said just because I said it? And when it comes to provision, not focusing on how much I have or how much I'm giving up, but focusing on the fact that I'm in alignment with God. So I know he'll provide. I don't understand all this, but I know God will provide. I know that God isn't a liar. He's not trying to trick me. He's not trying to keep me poor or keep me broke or anything like that. It's just the simple trust. So when you're in a remote place and Christ tells you to feed 20,000 people and you only have 2 fish and 5 loaves, as we'll find out that the disciples had, still trusting that Jesus will provide. God will make a way where there is no way. In contrast, our boy Cain, back in Genesis 3, if you want to flip to Genesis 3, we're going to go to verses 4 to 7. Cain obviously didn't trust God to provide. When he would take an offering to God, he would give God the scraps. He would give God the things that he already was disconnected from because he didn't value them. He gave God the least of the least. He gave God things that didn't matter to him, as opposed to his brother Abel, who gave God the best of the best, his first lambs, his top dollar, pretty much, you know? I lied again, man. Genesis 4, verses 4 to 7. Abel also brought a gift, the best portions of the firstborn lambs from his flock. The Lord accepted Abel and his gift, but did not accept Cain and his gift. This made Cain very angry, and he looked dejected. All right, so Abel and Cain, or Cain and Abel, they were never explicitly told to give God the best of the best. Abel just knew, and Cain just didn't, apparently. Abel understood that when it comes to a perfect God, I gotta give him my best. Abel understood that even though I'm giving up things that I love, it's not above God. You know, Abel understood that this sacrifice has to be the things that are the most valuable to me, you know? My offering to God has to be of value to me. Not just a large amount, but something that might hurt a little bit. You know, I'm not saying to go give your entire bank account to the church, but when we do give, it has to be out of a place of submission, out of this mindset of the resources I have aren't scarce because God provides them, right? And God provides infinitely, abundantly, right? More than we can ask or think. So when I give something up in submission to God, even though I have a little bit and he's asking me to do a lot, right? He can give me more. Just submit and give what you have, right? As opposed to Cain, who was thinking a little more carnally, a little more earthly in his mind. It says he gave some crops as a gift to the Lord, right? He didn't give his best crops. He didn't give his first crops. Imagine if he did give his first crops, right? You spend all this time toiling, working the soil, basically. You spend all this time working the soil. You spend time waiting for your crops to grow. They finally grow. You're probably a little hungry, like thinking about what kind of meal you can make with this, how you can feed your family with this, all this kind of stuff. And the first thing you do with basically the fruit of your labor, literally the fruit of your labor, is give it away to God. Yes, you're giving it to God, but you're still giving it away. That is going to hurt. It might even be in your head like, yo, how am I going to feed my family if I give this stuff away? Why not just work and get enough crops until I have enough for myself, then give the rest to God? Logically, that makes more sense, right? The same way the disciples, when Christ said you feed them, I'll put it like this. The disciples could have been like, why don't we go and work enough to buy enough food and then go feed everybody else? That's not what Christ said to do, though. He said, in that moment, you feed them. God, I don't got no food. I don't, how am I going to feed 20,000 people with no food? You know? But when things look impossible, when God asks us to give what we don't necessarily have, who do we go to? You go to the giver, right? You go to him. So giving with a hard heart doesn't necessarily have to be the same way that Cain gave. Giving with a hard heart can also be trying to make a way yourself. You know, giving with a hard heart can be any way you give that lacks faith. You know, that woman could have been like, I don't have that much to give. I can't give today. She wouldn't have been wrong necessarily, but she would have a hard heart towards that giving just because she thought that what she had wasn't enough for God. God's not looking for your amount. He's looking for your heart posture, ultimately. All right, verse 6 says, "Why are you so angry?" the Lord asked Cain. "Why do you look so dejected? You will be accepted if you do what is right. But if you refuse to do what is right, then watch out. Sin is crouching at your door, eager to control you. But you must subdue it and be its master." All right, later in the story, spoiler alert, Cain kills his brother Abel. He got so dejected and so upset at the fact that God accepted Abel and not him that he went and killed his brother. Right? As we can see, sin subdued him and he didn't subdue sin. He lost that battle. He even had the keys to winning that battle, but he had an open notes test and he still failed because his heart was hard. His heart was hard. His heart was hard towards giving. Wow, that was like a tongue twister. Say that 5 times fast. Yeah, Cain, his heart was hard towards giving because he was thinking more in a scarcity mindset, because he was thinking more of, I'm going to take what I need first, then give to God, because he put God after what God had given him. He put God after his crops. He put God after his work. He put God after himself, honestly. And he made what he had bigger than what God had asked for. Sin got a hold of him. Sin made him its slave. And because of that, he found himself in sin. He found himself killing his brother. He found himself doing what he didn't have to do, honestly. All because he was in this scarcity mindset. All because he lacked submission. Let's take it back to Matthew. Verse 17, we're still talking about submission, by the way. Verse 17 says, "But we have only 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish," they answered. That's the disciples speaking. Jesus says, "Bring them here." Christ wants what we have. It logically does not make sense to feed 20,000 people with 5 loaves and 2 fish. That's physically impossible. But the verse before, Jesus said, "You feed them." God gives us the mission and he also gives us provision, right? He'll make a way in his own plans. It's not up to us to make the plans, not up to us to provide the resources for the plans. It's just up to you to be a vessel in that stuff, you know? It's up to you to be the one that feeds them. You're not the one that's making the food, you're just serving it, right? We are servants of the Lord. So I encourage you right now that whatever God's asking you to do that looks impossible, I'm not sure exactly what it is for you. For me, sure, I know. But whatever God's asking you to do that seems impossible, bring what you have to Jesus. What you have is enough. I promise you. You don't have to go and work more or save more, or I'm not saying not to plan. Don't take this to the extreme. But don't wait until you feel comfortable to give, right? If God has told you to give 5 loaves and 2 fish to feed 20,000, give it in faith, man. We don't have to be the ones that provide. Be a willing vessel, have that faith, and submit. Allow God to provide. All right, in this story, after the disciples submit and bring what they have to Jesus, Jesus gives thanks. Verse 19 says, "Then he told the people to sit down on the grass. Jesus took the 5 loaves and 2 fish, looked up towards heaven, and blessed them. Then, breaking the loaves into pieces, he gave the bread to the disciples, who distributed it to the people." Christ thanked God for the bread and fish they did have. He thanked God for what was already there. Although there was a mission to be done that physically couldn't be done, that physically wasn't possible, he still thanked God for what they did have, right? I'm going to pause right there. We're going to flip to Philippians 4:4-9. "Always be full of joy in the Lord. I say it again, rejoice. Let everyone see that you are considerate or submitted in all that you do. Remember, the Lord is coming soon. Don't worry about anything, right? Submit. Instead, pray about everything. Submit again. Tell God what you need and thank him for all he has done, right? Thank God for what you have today. Thank God for what he already has provided in your life. Even though you do need more to do what he's asking you to do, thank him for where you are now. Thank him for the past. Thank him for the future in advance, right? Because he's going to make a way. And you know he's going to make a way because that's the kind of God he is. But just take some time and thank him. Then you will experience God's peace, which exceeds anything we can understand. His peace will guard your hearts and minds as you live in Christ Jesus. I said 4-9. We're probably going to stop at 7, but we'll see. The entire book of Philippians is about being content. And it's ironic because Paul's writing a book about being content in jail, right? Like, what? You know what I'm saying? But Paul's encouraging the people of Philippi, the Philippians, to be content with what they already have, to have joy in the Lord right now, to not wait to have enough to be joyful, right? Don't wait to have enough to submit to God, right? Don't wait until you see the victory physically manifest to thank God for it, right? Thank God for that stuff right now. Thank Jesus for what he has already done in your life now. Then he encourages them or tells them to submit what they have to the Lord in prayer. And as a result of thanking God and submitting to him in prayer, you will experience the peace of the Lord, aka contentment. More is to come, yes. But if you're not satisfied or content with what you have right now, you're going to make an idol of what you get later. If you start to look at your 5 loaves and 2 fish, which we're going to use as a metaphor for the small amount, if you start to look at your 5 loaves and 2 fish as your livelihood, start to look at it like, if I give this up, I'll go hungry. You'll start to hoard it, right? But if you're content with what you have right now, if you're content with what you have before a miracle is done, you'll give it away freely because you know you can get more. You'll give it away without a second thought because you know that God is the provider and he will provide more. You know, more provision can be made. You'll have less of a hard heart towards giving. You'll have less of this scarcity mindset. You'll have less of an earthly way of thinking, right? You'll be more, how do I say it? You'll be more like Christ. That's how I can say it. That's pretty simple. You'll be more like Christ. You'll be focused on how things look or how things are in fact, I guess. You'll focus on the truth and not the facts. The truth that God can and will provide more, right? If he's called you to feed 20,000, he will make a way. So right now, I want you to take some time, pause this video, take some time, be like Jesus, thank God for what you do have, and trust that he will provide more. He's called you out on some mission of whatever kind. He will provide more. And if you just unpause, you're probably asking, but Lord, when? As you go. Personally, my own life, I'm believing God to provide more, not just subscribers or money or whatever it is, but just a way to make all this stuff right here feasible, which I guess it is feasible right now, but like really feasible. Like feasible in the way where I can feed myself, but I'm already fed, man. I'm thinking in this way of, has God really provided for this whole YouTube thing? If I can't move out right now, if I can't buy all my own stuff right now, if I can't provide for myself. And I think God's using this time of me being small, this time of me being discontent with how my videos are going, as a way to show me that he's the provider for real. I think right now I'm hoarding my 5 loaves and 2 fish, or at least partially I am. You know, I'm not fully giving with an open heart. Like, I don't struggle for money. I don't have days where I'm like, how am I going to pay these bills? I don't have any bills to pay. I live at home. Love the crib, by the way. Shout out mom and dad. I say that a lot because I really do appreciate being at home. But I think right now I'm in the thanks part. I'm in the thanks mode. You know, God's called me to do something. I don't necessarily have the clearest picture of it, but it seems like a feed 20,000 people sort of thing. Not literally 20,000, but it seems like a big task that seems to be bigger than what I can do with my current resources. That's what I mean by feed 20,000. And I only have 5 loaves and 2 fish. I only have this light off Amazon. Not a bad light, by the way. I only have this vlog camera. I only have, well, I now have like a computer and stuff like that. I don't have so many resources to do things the exact way I want them to, you know? My videos still look pretty cool, but I don't have, I guess, all the knowledge I want to have. I don't have all the qualifications or a big team. I don't have everything I would need to have to make all this perfect, at least in my heart. I only have 5 loaves and 2 fish, but God's going to use those 5 loaves and those 2 fish. Give them to Jesus. Let him multiply it. It doesn't mean that you're going to blow up overnight. Talking to myself, it doesn't mean that you're going to have everything that you and your earthly mind think you need to have before you can submit to God. But it means that the 5 loaves and 2 fish that you do have right now are enough. And somehow, some way, they're gonna feed 20,000 or 5,000. Let me not assume numbers. So even though I'm in that thankful phase and I'm still learning how to be thankful and being content with where I am now, what I have now, when we are thankful, let's look at how the Lord provides. Right now, we're going to go back to verse 19 and then into 21. Verse 19 says, "Then he told the people to sit down on the grass. Jesus took the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, looked up to heaven, and blessed them," right? That contentment, that thanks, right? Then, breaking the pieces into loaves, he gave the bread to the disciples, who distributed it to the people. Then all ate as much as they wanted, and afterwards the disciples picked up 12 baskets leftovers. About 5,000 men were fed that day, in addition to all women and children. This story points to a lot of things, but just for the sake of the topic, we're going to hone in on provision. After they trusted Jesus, after they submitted, after Christ was thankful and blessed the food, he made the way. The disciples went out and gave everyone that bread and that fish. Right? They trusted God to provide in that moment with what they had. And in the end, they ended up having more than they needed, right? 12 baskets for more. They started with not even enough to feed themselves, the group, and they left with enough to feed, I don't know, maybe 12 more groups of 12. Was that 144? They left to feed more people than they could possibly think, right? They had that overflow, that abundance, you know? And if you go to Luke 19:16, sorry, I said Luke 19. I meant Luke 9:16. All right, if you go to Luke 9:16, it says, Jesus took the 5 loaves and the two, same exact story. Jesus took the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, looked up towards heaven, and blessed them. Then, breaking the loaves into pieces, he kept giving the bread and the fish to the disciples so they could distribute it to the people, all right? Jesus broke the bread, gave it to them. Broke the bread, gave it to them. Broke the fish, gave it to them. Broke the fish, gave it to them, right? They would keep going back and forth from the people to Jesus, feeding them, feeding them, feeding them with these 5 loaves and 2 fish. And somehow they never ran out. This is amazing. This is crazy, isn't it? This is, oh man, God is good. They had to keep going back to Jesus to feed these people, right? Christ told them, you feed them. They brought what they had. He thanked God for it. Ooh, then the miracle happened. Then the miracle happened, bro. And they just kept going back to Jesus over and over and over and over. And because, bro, 20,000 people. You know how many times you got to keep going back to God for bread and fish to feed 20,000 people? Estimated. At least 5,000 people is what it was. This is exactly how we should be. God's given you some commission, some plan, right? Go and, I mean, you did the Great Commission. God told you to do something, right? All you have is a small amount. Give that to him, let him multiply it, and keep going back to him for what? The best way I can say it, for a re-up, right? Every time, just re-up, re-up, re-up. Or go to him for sustenance, go to him for that fish and loaves, and then go and give that away, right? The abundance that God brings to our life is not just for us. The influence God has given you is not just for you. The money God's given you is not just for you. The wisdom that God has given you is not just for you, right? You go to God for that wisdom, for that abundance, for that money. He gives it to you, but you are only a vessel to which he wants to bring that into the earth. If you want to be fruitful in what God has given you, take what he gives you and give it away to others. Go and feed people with it, right? Don't just hoard onto it like, oh, God has given me this wisdom. If I give it away, then someone else is going to be smarter than me. No, 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 no. Use the wisdom, use the platform, use the influence, the skills, the blessings that God has given you in that crazy multiplication and abundance that he's giving it to you in, and go and give it away. Go and give it to somebody else. Go and feed the 5,000. Go and do the impossible in the name of Christ, right? 'Cause that's what it's like to be Christ-like. That's what it's like to trust God to provide and live in that provision, right? That's what it's like to be submitted, to be a Christian. Because in the end, you're going to realize that as much as you give it away, God's going to keep giving it to you until the job is done. God's going to keep giving it to you. Even when the job is done, you'll have more left over than you started with, bro. They started with 2 loaves and 5 fish and ended with 12 baskets. If they said, this food isn't enough, just said, Jesus, we don't have any food. If they never gave him the little, they would never end with a lot. It's not about leaving with a lot. Don't enter this stuff with that kind of mindset of, I just want to end with 12 baskets. You're going to end with those 12 baskets anyways. Or they did, at least. I don't know about every single time, but God's not going to leave you high and dry after you give things away. Right? It says give and it'll come back to you. Press down, shaken together, runneth over. Right? The King James Version, I guess. But God is not going to leave you poor just because you gave away what he had. I don't mean monetarily poor. I mean poor in the sense of you're not going to want for anything. You're not going to have anything that you need that's not provided for you, right? God will leave you in abundance and surplus. Just submit, trust him to provide, and just give. Just give. Keep on giving, right? It's like counterintuitive almost, like you don't have enough and you're trusting God to provide more. And the way to get to that abundance and provision is to give away. A lot of things in the kingdom are backwards, but somehow it makes sense. All right, now we're going to turn a few pages back from Luke 9 into Luke 5. I'm going to read verses 4 to 11. And I got the chapter right this time. Nice. All right, so in Luke 5, Jesus is meeting a few of his disciples, mainly Peter and I think Simon, not Simon. Simon is Peter. What was bro's name? Whatever Peter's brother's name is. Andrew? Andrew, yeah. He's meeting Peter and Andrew and the sons of Zebedee, which are James and John, for the first time. Oh, I missed some context. All right. He met the disciples, well, some of the disciples. He was speaking, preaching to some people. He was standing in Simon's boat. He sees Simon and them, I guess, wrapping up their day or whatever it is. And now after he's done speaking, he's talking to Simon. And verse 4 is where we catch them. And it says, when he had finished speaking, he said to Simon, now go out where it's deeper and let your nets down to catch some fish. Master, Simon replied, we worked hard all night and didn't catch a thing. But if you say so, I'll let the nets down again. And this time, their nets were so full of fish they began to tear. A shout for help brought their partners into the other boat, and soon their boats were both filled with fish and on the verge of sinking. Obviously, Jesus knew who Simon was. But as a fisher, you would assume that you know best. You know better than some random preacher about fishing. How would he know, go over there, put your nets down, fish will come? How does he know that, right? But Simon calls him master. He recognizes his, I guess, authority. I'm not sure why he calls him master, actually. But in Simon's submission, when it did not make sense, in Simon's trusting when there was no reason, no evidence to trust necessarily, he saw an abundance, a miracle from God, right? But that miracle never would have happened if he never trusted, did the thing that necessarily didn't make sense, and put down his net. And when he put down his net, he saw more fish than he himself could carry, to the point where James and John had to come and help them. Verse 8 says, when Simon and Peter realized what had happened, he fell to his knees before Jesus and said, oh Lord, please leave me. I'm such a sinful man. There's something there I'm going to glaze over for now. We'll skip for now. For he was awestruck by the number of fish they had caught, as were the others with him. His partners, James and John, the sons of Zebedee, were also amazed. Jesus said to Simon, don't be afraid. From now on, you'll be fishing for people. As soon as they landed, they left everything and followed Jesus. For the sake of the topic, I'm going to skip that verse 8. But Jesus showed them that he could work a miracle, right? Simon had a need to catch fish to feed his family or do whatever he had to do with the money from the fish. He couldn't catch any. He did something that made no sense out of submission, thinking this will be the way I can make that money, right? He sees that abundance from Jesus, right? That miracle that only could happen by God. He recognizes who God is, right? Who Christ is. And it all ends up being a way of Jesus showing them what he'll do through them spiritually. He shows them, I've provided all these fish for you. Yeah, you can have that money now. You can do your job well now. But ultimately, I didn't do this miracle for you. I did it so that you can help other people on this earth on behalf of God, right? God doesn't bless us just for us. He's not going to give that Lamborghini just because you want it. I mean, he might, but it's not just going to be so that you can have a Lamborghini or have a whole bunch of money. God never blesses us solely just for our own personal benefit. At least I don't think so. That's my personal opinion. I don't think He'll bless us only for our personal benefit. I think every blessing we get from God is meant to be some sort of testimony or something to show us that this is bigger than us, right? Something to bring us to the kingdom, maybe. Even in this circumstance, Christ worked that miracle to show them that they're going to be fishers of men. Kind of to put that fire in them, you know? It's to give them some assurance, to give them some evidence that I'm about to call out to do something impossible, but look how I just provided. I can provide this other way too, right? The blessing was a reflection of something bigger, you know? So God can provide and He will provide, but we have to trust first. You know, we have to do the things that don't necessarily make sense. I have no idea what God wants me to do right now that doesn't make sense. I guess I'll figure out when it makes no sense. But I'm still acting and living in faith right now, you know? It's not easy wanting to be a creator, and I have all these other ideas to expand this channel, expand other ideas I have, and still having to trust God through it all is not easy, you know? Even right now, I'm thinking like, are my words perfect enough to make an interesting video? Yada, yada, yada. I'm thinking too much about the details of things instead of just continually going to Christ, right? I want to encourage y'all and myself as well to continue to go to Christ. Keep going back to Him for that bread, right? Not back to the bread and the fish so that you can be eaten, so that you can be fed, right? We don't go to Christ just for us to be fed. We go to Christ. We go to Christ to be fed, but to also feed others, right? Jesus doesn't want to just save you only for the sake of yourself. Again, my personal opinion. He doesn't want to save you for the sake of yourself. I think He wants to save you to also save others, to be a testimony to others, to show others, yo, God is real for real. Like when you trust God and submit to God, look at what happened to bro over here. I'm going to trust God and submit to God too, because I want that. I see that. Like, look at the peace he has now, right? He was going through this hard moment, this hard season, and he had such peace because he said he followed Jesus. I'm going to follow Jesus too, you know? So don't look at your lack as just lack. Look at it as an opportunity for your faith to grow and your faith to grow so that others can see it grow, right? God allows us to be small. He allows us to lack so that when a miracle is done, it can be a spectacle to attract others to Himself. None of this, in my personal opinion, none of this stuff is just for us. None of this stuff is just for our personal gain. God wants to win all people's heart back to Himself. And He's using you, He's using me as vessels to do that. So I know we started talking about provision. Now it's kind of about evangelism, I guess. But the word is all so connected. And that miracle can't be done. The 5,000 can't be fed. The battle can't be won if you're trying to be the provider. You don't have the capacity to make more bread where there isn't bread, or to feed 5,000 men with 5 loaves and 2 fish. We ourselves can't do that. But if you allow Christ to be that provider, to do that miracle, He can do what He's actually trying to do, which is win the hearts of others, right? So I don't want to say that in a way that's like you don't matter, but there are bigger things happening here. Yes, you will see provision and abundance through that. They left with 12 baskets, mind you. But it's not about the 12 baskets. It's not about us being fed or us being famous or us being platform, right? It's about reaching the lost. It's about reaching those who are far from Christ. So God is going to provide, but don't forget that he's providing not just for you, but for somebody else too. If you've heard nothing else I've said right now, first of all, rewind. Second of all, have the faith to submit. This stuff is all bigger than us, right? The church is bigger than just your local community. It's the big C church, right? The entire earth, all the believers on this earth, and the believers that are yet to come. I want to encourage you to stop seeing your lack or your situations just as your life, things that just affect you, just affect your family or your city. Start to see your lack as an opportunity for a miracle, because that's exactly what it is, right? When you submit your situations to God, when you bring him those 5 loaves, those 2 fish, you say, God, you said to do X, Y, and Z. I know you're going to make a way because you said so, right? I know this thing is going to happen because you said so. I'm giving you this little bit that I have in faith, even though I don't feel 100% faithful or whatever it is. I'm giving you what I have in faith. Lord, thank you for this. He will multiply it. He will make a way, right? But it's up to us to submit what we have thankfully to Christ and keep going back to him over and over and over again. The same way the disciples did, going back to him for more bread, for more fish, not for themselves, but to feed others, right? To work that miracle, not for themselves, but for others. And in the end, they did have that abundance. But first, it takes submission. Because you might want good things, yes. You might want great things, yes. You might want to do the will of God. But you can't do the will of God on your own or on your own terms or by your own strength. Because we all say we hate being anxious, but we continue to pour into our own anxiety whenever we try to seek control. The same with the disciples. If they had tried to seek control, they had tried to go work for enough money to buy enough food to feed these people, imagine how backbreaking that work would have been. The remedy for your anxiety is going to be trust. The way the vessel, the highway, I don't know. I'm getting too metaphorical. The way that this miracle is going to happen is when you submit and trust God. When you're content, when you detach yourself from this scarcity of, if I give away my time or give away my money or give away my efforts or give anything, if I give, it'll all be gone. When you detach yourself from whatever it is you're giving, whatever it is you're giving up, whatever it is you're stepping into, if you give away your trust, it'll all be gone, right? You're going to get hurt again. No, bro. Just trust God. God's called you out. It won't be like last time. It won't be like that time where you did it yourself. He's not going to abandon you. He never did abandon you. He saw last time. He knows how you feel. He understands the lack that you have. He knows that you just have 2 pennies to give. He knows you only have 5 loaves and 2 fish. He's still asking you to give because a miracle is about to happen. The remedy for your anxiety is trust. It's always going to be trust. Trust in the Lord, not just trust, period. And you can't have that trust and you can't trust God if you keep trying to play his part and provide for yourself. You can't trust God and be self-made. Those 2 things, they don't combine. They don't go together. There's a friction there. At some point, someone has to be the driver. You can't have 2 drivers in one car. Even planes have pilots and co-pilots. Just like Philippians 4 urges us to do, have that peace and know it's taken care of. Know that God has already provided. Even if you haven't seen it yet, it's already done. God sees time all at once. He's outside of time, right? In his eyes, it's already done. And if you're following his eyes and his lead, you're fine, right? You might not feel fine immediately. That's okay. I don't feel fine either, bro. But accept the peace. The problem's not going to go away immediately. I'm not saying it is. But having that worry and trying to do things yourself isn't going to change it or bring you closer to God. So what are we doing here? So whatever that thing is, whatever the feeding 5,000 is for you, whatever the task or commission or the calling that God has placed on you that requires you to give that little, you know, you need a lot, take your hands off of it. Keep your hands off of it. Know that it's done. Know that it's provided for. Know that a way is made. A miracle has already happened. And have faith. All right, today's question: how are you going to change today and trust God more? Let me know down in the comments. Also, I'll be responding to every single comment, so feel free to comment, feel free to interact, feel free to, be a real person. I know most of y'all, so just go in there and talk. Also, interact with each other, man. Feel free to respond to somebody else's comment to be like, that's interesting, or I disagree, I agree. It's a community, so, commune, right? Make sure you like, subscribe, comment. Make sure you join this community as we all grow with Jesus. If you like this video, watch this one right here. It's about worrying about God's plan, how your worry is not going to change God's plan. As always, I love you all, but God loves you more. Be easy. See you next time.